the main type of flute is a C flute. So there are a couple different versions of the C flute. So this is a student model C flute. You can see that these holes are closed. This is also referred to as a closed hole flute sometimes. And also, this has a C foot joint on it, which means that it can only go down to a low C. A professional level or even a step-up intermediate model flute that has a low B foot joint can go down to a low B below the staff, but typical student model flutes can only go down to a low C. So again, closed holes compared to my professional flute, which has, you can see that the keys are open hole and it has a longer foot joint. So you'll see that mine is about an inch and a half longer than the student model flute. There are some other differences, such as like mine has a split E mechanism. It also has a C sharp trill. There's a couple other like little add-on upsell features like a D sharp roller, things like that. You will not typically find those on a student model flute. So if you have a student model flute, those are not things that you will likely have. Those are things that you will start seeing when you go to upgrade to your step-up model or your professional level flutes. So both of these are Yamaha. If you are looking for a solid student model flute, a Yamaha is a great way to go. Oftentimes, rent-to-own and band programs will steer you towards Gemeinhardt. Not my favorite. Yamaha is serviceable, much more serviceable than Gemeinhardt. It will last you a lot longer, and it's just over and all going to be an easier playing flute. For instance, I had two students, one of which had got a Yamaha, the other of which had a Gemeinhardt. They have been playing since August of this year. The one student, her flute is doing beautifully, no problems. I haven't even had to make key adjustments on it for her. Whereas the Gemeinhardt literally fell apart while she was playing in my classroom. So, and that also can have to do with how well she's caring for it versus the other student. There is also that, but my experience is that, for a beginner flute, if you want something that's going to last a while and hold its value, try to go with like a Yamaha. I would stay away from Gemeinhardt in general. So, this is a C flute. This is a pretty standard flute like you would get, from any music store. Like I said, this is a Yamaha. It's a great little flute. And then we have a couple other iterations of the flute. So this monster here, as you can see, it's significantly larger. It's got a much larger body and it's longer. So it's a big boy. This is an alto flute. Alto flutes are keyed in G. Now, you wouldn't typically refer to this as a G flute. Some people would, but most people don't. But an alto flute is keyed in G and is lower than your standard C flute. So, I'm not going to lie, it takes a lot more air than the regular standard C flute, so it's kind of hard to play sitting down. Alto flute is actually one of my favorites. As a matter of fact, I do alto flute meditation music on Monday nights, and it's just so much fun. It's just beautiful instrument. So for comparison's sake, my flute So you can see the differences there. I also sometimes feel like alto flute has a little bit of a, weirdly enough, it has a little bit of a woody quality to it. It just kind of reminds me a little bit more of like the wooden flutes or bamboo flutes, things like that. But you can get a lot of really cool characters out of it. One thing that I will note with an alto flute, you'll notice that I have a straight head joint. You can also get a curved head joint, so it curves back around this way so that the lip plate, the embouchure, is closer to here. So it makes it a little easier for someone like me with shorter arms to play it. Now, there are a lot of reasons why I didn't go with the curved head joint. I'm not even going to go into them. I should have, though, because ultimately I'm all the way out here when I play it, so it makes it a little difficult. So if you're somebody with shorter arms and you're thinking about getting an alto flute, go with a curved head joint. It's just better all the way around, and you will not hurt yourself in the process. You can actually get a curved head joint for a C flute, but that is typically reserved for young kids, small kids, under the age of 8 kind of deal. That's usually when you see those curved head joints. Now, to go lower, there is a bass flute and there is a contrabass flute, both keyed in C, and they are even lower than the alto flute. I actually don't own either one of those because they get mighty expensive, and they're a little nichey. You really have to want to play a bass flute. They take a lot of air, so like alto flute, it takes even more air than a C flute. Side note, a C flute takes roughly the same amount of air as a tuba. So you really have to have lungs of steel to play those things well. And that is something that I, don't actually have at this point. I suffered pretty rough from COVID in 2020, and my lungs were damaged. So I am still building up a lot of my lung stamina again, and strength. So I don't think that I would be able to comfortably play a bass flute, which is why I haven't ventured that way. But again, they're even lower, but they are gorgeous. I love low flutes. So then we have the piccolo. So you'll notice that the other 3 flutes that you've seen today are metal, and this guy is wood. So not all piccolos are wood. Quite a few of them are metal. And even have metal head joints similar to your standard flute, but there are quite a few piccolos that are wood. Now, oftentimes when you have like composite or plastic or metal piccolos, those are used for marching band, just because they are less likely to damage in adverse weather situations. My piccolo, however, is more designed towards, concert band, symphonic band, and orchestra, and soloists. Because again, this is wood. So it will crack if you do not take care of it. So things to keep in mind. Now, I recently posted a blog that talks about whether or not, you should play piccolo. And I would argue the same goes for low flutes. Yes, absolutely. Piccolo's awesome. Alto flute's awesome. Bass flute's awesome. But you want to make sure that you have a really solid foundation in flute before you jump into those other instruments. So they're really cool. They have a lot, and you can actually get a lot more in terms of your career if you are a low flute player or a proficient piccolo player. It can bring some opportunities on, but again, most people, like, say I started playing in flute in middle school, I didn't actually really play piccolo or alto flute until I was in high school, like junior, senior year. Some people do start earlier than that, especially if you're in marching band. But I would just say that the average person is going to take a couple of years of playing and have a really solid flute foundation before they start playing piccolo. Well, I have to be careful because my microphone, actually, I'm going to back my microphone up. That's the low register. And that's not even the high register. Like, that's just kind of middle. So piccolo gets really, really high. You do want to wear earplugs. That's why I did not venture above that D, because your ears will hate you. And while I'm at it, I will harp on that a little bit. You want to make sure that you're wearing earplugs if you're practicing piccolo really at all. And if you are just starting out on piccolo, I would limit it to 5, maybe 10 minutes per practice session. So if you're practicing for an hour, let the last 5 minutes be piccolo. Let the last 10 minutes be piccolo. You don't want to overdo it with piccolo. You can hurt these muscles.